Hello and welcome back to the cesspool, and welcome back to the floor. Yeah, I know I've said now like a million times, number one, that I was gonna do this more often, and number two, that I was gonna do stuff other than this, other than just showing this same slightly dirty carpet. But man, does life get in the way? So, you know what? Let's look on the bright side. We are looking back at the carpet, but I'm here, and I know it's again been a couple of months, but it's been a very busy couple of months for me in particular. I swapped jobs. I got very sick. I'm still recovering from that, but I'm back. I got something interesting to talk about. I think it's interesting, at least. It's one of the more obscure. I mean, it's not really obscure because a lot of people know about it, but it's one of those things in Nintendo history that I feel like is not really I mean, people discuss it, but not very extensively. And I don't know if I'm necessarily going to be talking about it extensively, but I'm going to give like a different perspective of it. Because a lot of times when people talk about this, it's like, well, it's your opinion of it, and you're not really looking at it objectively, or more the case, like you're not looking at it from where the company saw it or how they were trying to purvey it at the time. So I'm proud to say that it's my turn to talk about the Virtual Boy. I don't have a Virtual Boy. So, instead, we're going to talk about what Nintendo thought of the Virtual Boy. Because what I do have is the Nintendo Power issue 75 from August of 1995, that specifically, the majority of this thing is talking about the Virtual Boy. Actually, not the majority. I would say about 50% of this thing is like dedicated to the Virtual Boy. And this is not the best example of this issue, but you know what? I have it. I'd like to thank the original owner, Carrie Bradford. I highly doubt that they still live there, but if they do, damn. We're gonna take a look at this bad boy and see what's up with this thing. What did Nintendo think of the Virtual Boy? Immersing myself in a 20-page 3D exclusive. That's what they say. There was actually a lot of interesting stuff that was coming out in the summer of 1995. So this issue has some pretty big games, and some of the greatest games of all time are actually showcased in this issue as coming out for the Super Nintendo. There's also sneak peeks of the Nintendo Super. I'm talking about it instead of just showing it. I literally have the thing to show it to you. So anyway, let's open her up and talk about it because we're just wasting time here. So actually, something kind of interesting. I don't really know what this is, but they're talking about Nintendo Power Source, which apparently was an online service. And I tried to do a little bit of research on this after I skimmed through the whole issue, and I was not really finding very much. I can only imagine that, I mean, other than what was in here, I imagine it was basically either Nintendo Power provided some kind of online service where I don't think it was like a subscription or anything. I think it was just them launching a website. And I believe because they did the Nintendo Power Pack Source for NES games, which was like a tips and tricks guide as far as I can understand. So I imagine this was probably a tips and tricks guide, but now online, and I imagine more for Game Boy and Super Nintendo than the original NES, but I honestly don't know. So I'm not really gonna, I don't have a ton to say about this. If anybody does, the Nintendo Power Source online service, if anybody has any kind of information on this, I am very interested, because I have absolutely no idea what this is. Top games during the time, Donkey Kong Country was actually at number 1 in 1995, which is pretty interesting. Final Fantasy 3 and Link to the Past, and that makes a lot of sense. Everything else here is pretty good too. Secret of Mana, Killer Instinct, Mortal Kombat 2. Earthbound really should have been higher, but the Earthbound was not received very well back in the day. No one bought this game. So, Illusion of Gaia, pretty good. Or Gaia. Here we go. Virtual Boy arrives. In-your-face gaming, as they say. And this little spread. So this spread goes on for probably another 10 pages. And it is literally all... Man, oh man. Look at all of the different Virtual Boy games. So many are going to be coming out. And then that was it. Every game that they list. They list all of the games here. I'm going to zoom it in so that we can actually look at them. How many games will be available for Virtual Boy? So 3 games, plus Mario's Tennis, the pack-in game. And then it lists all the games that we know for the first few months will be coming out on Virtual Boy. And unfortunately, those were all of the games that came out on Virtual Boy. So, yeah, that's a little unfortunate for them. But yeah, it's some Q&As because no one really knew what the hell this thing was. They just knew it was some kind of 3D gaming system from Nintendo, and it just released when they already said they're working on the Nintendo 64 or the Ultra 64 at the time. So what the hell was this thing doing? I don't really know. I think at the time this was intended to be some kind of third pillar for Nintendo. I imagine inside corporate, that was the idea. They were like, okay, we're going to have our handhelds, we're going to have our home consoles, and then we're going to have our more experimental, in this case, VR section. It didn't really work out. This is the only time. And, to be fair, the other time that they tried a third pillar strategy was the DS, because they intended... Well, okay, they publicly stated that they intended to keep the Game Boy line around, along with the DS, along with the home consoles. That didn't really happen for very many years, maybe 2 years, because I think the Game Boy Micro came out in 2005. The original DS came out in 2000. Anyway, so yeah, it didn't. That never really worked out for Nintendo. Not that it really needed to, because the DS kind of took over. So yes, this is releasing August 1995. They're saying the MSRP is going to be $179, which in 1995 that was very freaking expensive. So not a lot of people bought this for a lot of reasons, and I don't really think that they actually conveyed this thing super well. And what they did, there was a lot of like, man, this thing is going to be amazing. And you notice how they're showing very few screenshots and they're very selected. You have the Mario Tennis, just the title screen. We don't need to see the game. We don't have to see how simple the game is, and that this is the whole game. I mean, the golf game, this was pretty graphically, for 32-bit in 95, this was pretty decent looking, other obviously than the fact that it was all red and black. So, So why isn't the Virtual Boy in full color? Very good question. Let's find out. The resolution or sharpness of the images is 3 times better than it would be if blue and green LED arrays had been included. The system also would cost 3 times as much. Again, kind of another sign that maybe this technology wasn't ready yet. Maybe, just maybe. So, another interesting thing, they were kind of showcasing over here that you could try this thing out. They had it available. Show people what it's all about. Nintendo's teamed up with Blockbuster Video and NBC to offer prizes, savings, and best of all, a taste of Virtual Boy. Virtual Boy's amazing 3D immersive environment before you buy. You can rent Virtual Boy systems for $9.99 from any of the 3,000 Blockbusters in the US. That is kind of crazy that they did that. And then, even weirder, NBC made a deal with so you could get a sweepstakes with over $200,000 in prizes, including Virtual Boys and game packs. And the weirdest thing of this, of all of this, you could win fantasy trips to the sets of top NBC shows such as Seinfeld, Frasier, and The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. So this is one of the weirdest. I have never, why? Like, why? Why did they do this? It is really freaking fascinating that, number one, they allowed you to rent entire systems from Blockbuster. Not just the games. Like, renting games from Blockbuster, that was pretty normal by the mid-90s. That was very much at, the peak of Blockbuster. And, I have Blockbuster video games. I have copies. My copy of Ocarina of Time is a Blockbuster copy, actually. So it's pretty interesting that they allowed the entire, like, they were really scared. They needed people to actually play this because they knew it was going to be a lot of money in the first place, and obviously it would have been even more. So you're getting a disappointing product that you're paying a lot of money for, and it would have been even more, and even like way out of reach of middle-class America in 1995 if they actually went with full color and made the games look good. So they were like, oh man, we gotta at least get some good press on this. Okay, we'll give one to every Blockbuster and see if that works. It didn't, but I'm really interested to see now if there are Blockbuster like specific Virtual Boys, or if they had to be given like the Blockbuster Video stickers or like some kind of barcode or something, or if it's on the box, like did it get its own box? That it's really interesting. I can't imagine that they did this ever again. And the NBC sweepstakes thing is it's like, man, I could enter the NBC sweepstakes that's partnered with Nintendo so I could meet Jerry Seinfeld and live in his apartment for the day or whatever. Like, I don't know, that's a little odd. It's very odd. Alright, we're gonna move on to the next page. We talked about that a little bit too much. So yes, these are all the video games. Hudson Soft is here with Panic Bomber Virtual Boy Edition. They really care, And then we got Atlas and Ocean Video Games, Kemco, Virtual League Baseball. A lot of the games here, okay, I mean, Jack Bros is kind of that one's a little weird. But, and Waterworld, the movie tie-in game, of course. They really were struggling to develop things for this thing. And man, were they trying to be like, hey, look at all the third parties we have. Nintendo isn't the only gaming company to develop exceptional software for the Virtual Boy system. They're like, look. I mean, this I honestly think was a cry for help to other developers. Like, please, just my God, do something on this thing that's like a system seller, because we can't develop it, and no one else can apparently either. Nobody could figure out like a real system seller for this. They packaged it with Mario Tennis. Speaking of the devil, Mario Tennis. This is the first Mario sports game, like official Mario sports game. Like, we're not talking about Mario being playable or appearing in games, the sports games on NES or whatever. This is technically the first Mario sports game, and it's the first, obviously, the first Mario Tennis game. And it's not terrible. I have played this game. For what it is, it's fine, but it is quite literally just tennis. There's no like Mario power-ups. There's barely Mario themes on like the courts. They kind of got backgrounds. That's about it. Everything else here is literally just tennis, and they talk about tennis for a while. Obviously, we got the playable characters, and they did technically play slightly different, so it's kind of like the classes that they would do later. I don't really think in actually, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think in the Mario sports like the modern Mario sports games there are like advantages and disadvantages to characters besides maybe weight class. Obviously that's the thing in Mario Kart, but I don't know like in Mario Tennis if that's a thing. But apparently in this game there is, because Luigi's faster and Mario's more it's kind of like Super Mario, North American Super Mario Bros. 2, other than Luigi doesn't jump high, he runs fast, whatever. And Toadstool kind of does, they play differently, but they're kind of going for the same sort of thing here. And like, oh man, stacks of stats. which, okay, yeah, wow, we get to know how good Mario is at tennis compared to Luigi. Oh man, singles and doubles, basic tennis stuff. Like, this is kind of the thing. Oh man, there's a Lakitu like in Mario Kart. Oh man, more. There's just like, man, serves up, volley, it's just literally going over. Why is Donkey Kong Jr. here? This is literally the Mario Kart, the Super Mario Kart roster. They're really struggling to fill up 4 pages for Mario's Tennis here. Now we're talking Galactic Pinball. 1 box for each freaking pinball table. And that's it. Obviously, they go into the specifics of like the different ones. And then, man, are they trying with these blurbs to make this sound like it's some like crazy game. Get like, I don't know, just any other freaking pinball game. I think would have been better than this. Like, it's cool. It's cool because, yes, the Virtual Boy's 3D effect is kind of neat. And man, were they trying to show that off here. Yeah, this is a 32-bit system. But yeah, no, this is another game where it's like, okay, like, is this really showing off the power of this system? Is this a system seller? No, I don't really think this was ever intended to be. I don't know why they're giving it 2 full pages. Teleroboxer. This is at least like okay. This is the fighting game. This I can imagine they were trying to sell a little bit more. You got your roster of characters, and then they're gonna go over each of them here. All their different abilities, what they're good at, what they're not good at. Mario Clash. This is kind of an interesting one. This is basically a 3D remake of the original Mario Bros. Arcade game. It's not exactly the same, but it's very heavily inspired. There's basically 2 sections of the map where you're either in the foreground or the background, and that's actually been done in several Mario games since. And this is, I guess, technically the first one to do this. Obviously, it's on a much smaller scale. But this game was at least playing with perspective more, in my opinion, than like Mario Tennis. Definitely more than like Pinball or the Robot Boxing game, because those games were just kind of like, okay, it was just a visual thing. With this, it's actually part of the gameplay. How much or how little that actually matters is but there's a little bit more going on here. The whole thing is, though, that, for a 32-bit system, which was a big part of the advertising, these games did not look like 32-bit. These looked like Super Nintendo games. They really, really did. The one thing that I will say is the art department of Nintendo Power. Whoever went through through all of these spreads and was like, okay, we need to make this look really freaking cool. 1995, 3D vector graphics, cool. Man, did they do a good job, because this does look very cool. And the other thing is that this game, I just realized this going through it again, they show a lot of screenshots of the game compared to some of the other games. Like, we're looking at 6-7 pictures on each page here. Like, they're showing this game off because I think they knew that this game, it's not the best game ever, but as a visual representation for what they were trying to accomplish with the Virtual Boy, they knew that this was the best option for actually showing off the graphical capability of the system. Now we're done with the Virtual Boy. That's it. That's all we got. But like I said, some of the greatest games of all time are showcased in this issue because they were coming out in summer of 1995. Yoshi's Island was coming out in August. This is obviously the August issue. So there's a lot of beautiful Yoshi's Island art here. And this I think Nintendo was very, very proud of. And, I can understand why, because it's, number one, Yoshi's Island is, obviously this was basically the start of the Yoshi series, but they had to tie it in with Mario just to make sure that it sold well, so they called it Super Mario World 2. But like, man, oh man, you know, they were very proud of this, very clearly. And yeah, they did only give it three full page spreads. But like, you know, that's enough. For one game, they knew this was a big deal. And it really is a shame to me that this was not at the beginning, and they were so focused and they were so invested in the Virtual Boy that this is halfway through the magazine. That really, really sucks. Street Fighter 2 was coming out in 1995, so obviously we're going to go over Street Fighter 2. This is a game that I own in the box, which I'm very happy about because the artwork is just beautiful and it's so well represented here. Like this is just, man oh man, this was really Nintendo Power at its height, because we were getting so much about these games. Each game was such a big deal, especially you know, the big names and the big franchises. Like, they knew Street Fighter. I mean, obviously Street Fighter 2 is one of the biggest fighting games ever, and all of its a million different versions. But they knew even back then, you know, this was a huge deal. So we're showcasing all the characters. We're going to go over everything that they can do, and how they perform against different characters, which is just like, just really, really interesting. Really interesting. A lot of fun. And yeah, this artwork is absolutely gorgeous. This is pretty interesting. This was talking about developers in Vancouver, Canada, and like a special insider of how they develop games. It's pretty interesting. It's super crazy. This game was... I don't know a ton about this. The Phantom 2040, but this was coming out on Super Nintendo as well. Going over all the different parts of the game. And this actually is pretty interesting because we get a full, like, 4-page spread here with beautiful artwork of Killer Instinct 2. Absolutely gorgeous. Like, it's very 90s, but man, is it cool. It's gorgeous in its own way. And on the other side here, we have a nice spread of more of Phantom 2040. So they were really kind of going in on this game. They thought, honestly, I don't hear a lot of people talk about this game, so I can't say that it did super well, but at the time, they were very well pushing it. Now we're talking about some pretty interesting stuff here, because this is where we talk about Chrono Trigger. And Chrono Trigger was also coming out in 95, and here we are. Again, they were very proud of this game, rightly so. Like, again, the artwork we're talking about, you know, this is obviously an introduction for, you know, to get people to actually buy it. Not that they needed a reason, because this looked amazing. It was coming from Square, so we already know, okay, this is going to be a good game. It's coming from one of the best JRPG developers, especially at the time. And, you know, it's about time travel. That's awesome. Going through some different reviews. Now we're going into strategies. Classified information, talking about stuff that should be coming out or has already come out. Some of the secrets. This was a typical segment in Nintendo Power for a long time. Secrets and little codes and stuff. Now, this is pretty interesting. This is going over the Ninja Gaiden games coming out as a trilogy on Super Nintendo. So they go over each of the 3 games in detail. So this first page is just kind of an overview, and then they talk about the first game, second game, third game. And they go over all the different acts, and it's very detailed. Like, this is another one where they're really trying to sell you on this. To be fair, all these games had already come out, so people already knew. But it's cool to read and kind of get a perspective of these games now. Ninja Gaiden 3, at least 4 years removed, but the first one 6. The games actually did come out very consecutively year after year for NES. Now, this is pretty interesting. The Judge Dredd game, which is a tie-in with the movie. So they have movie screenshots here and then talking about the game. And this is for Game Boy. Counselor's Corner. This is another segment where, you know, it's kind of answering questions and kind of a guide for different games here. Answering some common, you know, Q&A stuff, Q&A fast facts here again. for different games. And this was all kind of stuff that was, but not. Now, Super Game Boy Classics, this was interesting because I didn't know that Nintendo was very much pushing these games. These are just re-releases of Atari games, specifically Atari's arcade games on Game Boy. And why did they specifically label it as Super Game Boy Classics? I don't really know. I mean, they're just Game Boy games. Yeah, they can be played on a Super Game Boy, but they're Game Boy games. You could just label them as Game Boy games or Atari Game Boy Classic. Or I don't know, because like they're okay. So basically, the gimmick with these was that they were packaging in 2 Atari games on Game Boy in one cartridge. These are not very expensive games. You can find them very easily. The thing is, they don't have a ton of merit nowadays because there are way better collections for these games. You don't play these games on a freaking browser now, so it's like, eh. Centipede Millipede, good combo. Earthworm Jim coming out on Game Boy. So, yeah, after the section with Game Boy games and everything and Earthworm Jim, this is where we kind of get our pamphlets and everything. The live Mortal Kombat tour, which was pretty interesting, and they were doing a sweepstakes for that. You can go to Orlando show, and you could win t-shirts and sweatshirts and stuff like that. The jacket, not gonna lie, that's kind of cool. And then the winners, power players, contests, high scores of different games. A lot, Tetris, obviously, Final Fantasy 3. Kirby's Dream Course, Peekskill, New York, and it's pretty interesting. People would submit their stuff to Nintendo Power, and they get featured in the magazine. Like, that's really cool. That doesn't happen anymore. It's really interesting. Now playing. These are, again, some of the games are okay. They're talking about freaking Asteroids and Missile Command. Ooh. So these are games that had come out already, or were coming out like right now, and in August. And they were little like actual reviews based on what the Nintendo Power staff at the time thought of the game. So they have Chrono Trigger here, Earthworm Jim, like the actual Earthworm Jim for Super Nintendo, Centipede Millipede. Okay, who cares? And they specify, okay, this game's for Super Nintendo, this game's for Game Boy. It's pretty interesting. And they actually do give pros and cons for the games. So like Centipede and Millipede, let's see what they say. Fast play, quick to learn, 2-player option. Doesn't have the variety of the Asteroids Missile Command game. Both Centipede and Millipede are very similar. Yes, okay. Galactic Pinball. Okay, now they're just like fucking flooding this shit with the game, the Virtual Boy games. Like, I don't care, guys. I don't care. Actually, you know what? I do care. Let's see what they said about Mario's Tennis. They have a long freaking article here. I just want to see what exactly did they say here. Excellent tennis action and play control. Fun characters, singles, doubles. No 2-player option. Yeah, but it's for the Virtual Boy. I don't know what they were expecting there. There was the concept of a Virtual Boy link cable, so I do believe that it was intended to have 2-player options at some point in its existence, but we never got there. And then the head-to-head section where we're talking about metrics, the ratings based on whatever weird rating system that they had. Pretty interesting to see this kind of stuff. Some of this stuff probably didn't even come out. And that's pretty much it. They have these little cards here, which I believe were intended to be used with like 3D glasses, because it says at the bottom here, scope out these cards with your 3D specs. You'll be amazed what you see. The magazine, I believe, did not come with 3D glasses. If it did, I don't have them. It looks like they were intended for you to have 3D glasses or something like that. But that's the model. That's the whole issue of Nintendo Power here. This is an interesting one to go through. 1995 was a bigger year in gaming than I thought it was. Obviously, the PlayStation coming out was a huge deal. But for Nintendo, there was more happening here than just the Virtual Boy. Chrono Trigger, Yoshi's Island, I mean, there was some big stuff. Mortal Kombat, or sorry, not Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter 2. There was stuff happening. Even though this was the end of the Super Nintendo's life, Nintendo was still pretty serious about making sure that thing had titles until the Nintendo 64 came out. And they were actually putting out it wasn't just like kind of shoving stuff out. I mean, Yoshi's Island alone, that's a system seller by itself. And it came out this late in the console's life, which is just very interesting. And to wrap up the concept of the Virtual Boy from Nintendo's perspective, what they were trying to show here is that this was an alternative form of gaming. This was different than any other thing you could play, which, yeah, kinda. I mean, the games were really not. That's really the whole thing. I think they were trying to portray that this thing could do what no other system could. The games were way different and way more advanced than anything else that was coming out at the time. And the thing is that, you look at it objectively now, and you're like, okay, no, it really wasn't. Unfortunately. And there's a reason that they're saying, oh man, there's plenty more games planned. Nope, didn't happen. This did not sell well, obviously. Not just because it was more expensive, but because there was no system-selling game. There was no Mario World. There was no Mario and Duck Hunt. There was no Tetris, which is interesting. Actually, no, there was Tetris, but it did not launch with it. So that was a big problem. The fact that they launched it with a Mario sports game, I don't think is even inherently bad. But because you got Mario, Mario, okay, that sells. But to sell someone on a new system, I think it needed to showcase the system in a better way for a pack-in. And I do think that a lot of Nintendo's pack-ins have been very successful at that. Obviously, Mario and Duck Hunt, huge. Mario World, huge. Not just because it's one of the greatest platformers of all time, but because it really showcases the leap in technology alone that the Super Nintendo had over the NES. Obviously, the N64 didn't launch with a game by itself, but Mario 64, again, huge technical leap. GameCube, and then you had Wii Sports. So it's very much, this game had no system seller. The 3DS had the same problem. Wii U had the same problem. Switch didn't because of Breath of the Wild, but yeah, that's obviously that, whatever. But that's really the biggest issue. Game Boy Advance, I don't even know. Nintendo was trying to sell this as something that it wasn't, and I think that was an issue from the start. And them trying to push this thing out because they were worried about the PlayStation being 32-bit and they didn't want to be left in the dust, I think was a huge waste of money. I think they realized very fast that this was a waste of money. I honestly think that a lot of people within the company, and definitely in their marketing department at Nintendo Power, were really struggling to actually find a lot of interesting stuff to say about this thing because it was technically limited in so many ways. So that's it. I'm rambling way too much. Thank you all so much for watching. I do hope that you enjoyed. I'm sorry I didn't have a Virtual Boy to actually talk about this with, but whatever. This'll do, right? I do have some more stuff to talk about, and I have something big planned. I promise. I promise. There's actually something different planned. It is in the works. I will say this: the script for this thing is done. So now it's just a matter of production and scheduling and location and blah, 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 blah. Okay. Anyway, yes. Thank you all so much for watching. I do hope that you enjoyed. I have no idea when the next video will be, but I'll see you guys then.